As we noted, it has been a busy week at the state capitol and even beyond in the city of Little Rock. Maureen Glisovic, senior political reporter for KATV, now joins us. Maureen, thank you for being here as always.
Always a pleasure, Roby.
Great work this week. You were deeply involved in every day's reporting on what happened in the special session that the governor called to deal primarily with this mask mandate ban, Act 1002. He wanted changes to it. We knew going into the session that there really wasn't much of a chance of those changes getting passed. Why did the governor try anyway?
Well, matter of fact, the governor was actually asked if he thought it was a waste of time to have even called a special session. And in his words, he says it's not a waste of time to always give the opportunity for legislators to do the right thing. And in his, in this case, and in his opinion, obviously the right thing was to amend Act 1002 and allow public schools local control to make decisions, and they couldn't get it done. Matter of fact, he did say that his own objective was accomplished, but not by the legislature, but by the courts.
Right. We'll talk about that court decision in a second. I think it's important to note too, and you tell me if you agree or disagree with this, but I think the governor, knowing that he might not have had the votes going into the session, if he didn't call a special session, everybody would have blamed Governor Hutchinson for not calling a special session to try to solve this problem with the masks and the local schools with what we've seen. By calling them into the session and them not accomplishing that change, that burden of blame shifts somewhat. Do you agree or disagree?
I'd have to agree with that. At the end of the day, it was Governor Hutchinson that was on every single national news network being questioned. Why aren't you doing more about this? You had, I'm sure, a slew of parents and concerned citizens contacting his office. And I'm sure the pressure at some point just built on. And so whether he had the votes or not, I do agree and believe that he had to do something to sort of take the heat off of him.
You listened to some testimony this week, particularly from the Marion School District. Dr. Glenn Fenter, that superintendent, was at the Capitol a couple of days. How dire is the situation in that school district? And is it a preview of what we might expect to see when school restarts?
Well, I can say that a lot of the arguments of whether this would be a preview and needing to be able to put mask mandates in schools. I know health experts argued that that's what we're going to end up seeing if we don't allow these kids to be able to wear masks, or at least allow the school board to mandate it, right? The Marion School District, according to the superintendent, it's a pretty serious situation. If you think about it, I think it was yesterday he announced about 830 something students and staff members had been quarantined. They've only been in school for, this is now the end of the second week. They've had 40 something plus positive cases. And just through contact tracing, they've had to quarantine a lot of folks. I know that the superintendent's main concern was that you can't teach people who are being quarantined, right? And so he felt that some of these students are not going to be able to get the best education they can if this continues to happen. He did mention that it was voluntary to wear a mask, and he did get some pretty significant compliance from staff members, but it was hit or miss when it came to students wearing masks voluntarily.
Pulaski County Judge Tim Fox on Friday morning, about an hour after the legislature adjourned from their special session, rules that Act 1002 is unconstitutional. Give me some varying opinions of how that ruling, at least the temporary injunction, has been received from supporters of and opponents of the law.
Well, if you just kind of take a look on social media, and you could kind of gauge how some Arkansans are feeling. I know that a lot of parents are expressing they're very relieved to know that somebody stepped in and in their opinions did the right thing and allowed for public schools to have the control to do that. You've also got some other folks who are hoping that appeals will be made, and essentially they want the Arkansas Supreme Court to possibly weigh in and see if this is unconstitutional or if it's not. Again, as mentioned, it's a temporary restraining order, so there still needs to be some type of official ruling, but it's kind of mixed.
All right. And the governor spoke to that too in his press conference. Kind of how does he plan to, I guess I got the impression that he might have a differing opinion than Attorney General Leslie Rutledge in terms of how they handle their interactions with the court on this particular ruling.
That is something that he was asked about, and he's obviously in a position to where he is very satisfied with Judge Fox's ruling to put that temporary restraining order on. That's actually something that as he mentioned, his objective was to allow school districts to do this. But he is going to be in a different type of spot because he mentioned that he would like to specifically speak to the courts as, an individual, because at the end of the day, the Attorney General's office is tasked with protecting, the interests of the state, and especially with lawsuits. She's there to protect the laws that have been passed by the legislature here. So, it's possible that the Attorney General's office appeals whatever final decision Judge Fox makes, and the governor is not going to be in the same boat when it comes to having the same sentiments toward that appeal.
All right, KATV's Maureen Glisovic, thank you as always. Great to have you with us.
Of course, always a pleasure, Obi, as always.
All right. We're back with Dr. Chad Rogers, who has some thoughts on how parents can protect their children as they head back to school. Stay tuned.